What's up, Matt?
Hey, how you doing? It's an honor to meet you.
Yes, super happy to talk to you. If anybody has any questions, there is a question little icon on the bottom. Go ahead and play along with us. Matt, I
Yes.
actually just read the book All for Love yesterday. I
Oh,
bought it and I read it in the same day.
whoa.
It's amazing. For me, as somebody who knows a lot and
Yeah.
people come to me for advice, I'm constantly just turned on to like fixing people.
Hmm.
And one of the main takeaways for me on that book is that, first of all, I don't even think I even knew what that term holding space even really meant
Right.
until like you have like expanded what that means to me, because I can take that into every conversation. But the biggest thing for me was this notion of if I were you, this is what I would do. That's like my constant, like
Oh.
I'm like there all the time. That's like my default.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so I know I didn't really introduce you, and I'll get into that in a second, but I just wanted to share my appreciation with you
Thank
because I
you.
think this is going to be life changing for me, because I'm always listening to people thinking about, okay, what can I tell them to do differently? And you've completely reframed that for me in this book.
Well, and I love that because then when we're not being people's rescuers, we can be people's companions, because that's honestly what a lot of us need. Is we need to know we're not alone. We're not alone in our experience. We're all in this together. And that, it's normal to have these experiences. If I were you, here's what I would do. And what I think that what writing this book is really here to do, we're all intuitive beings. And it takes a really high level intuition to be able to tune into what is right for another person. And most people's intuition is, here's what is intuitively true for my perception of you. And so I think it's really important when we're supporting people is that we're connecting with their experience of themselves, helping them to find the options that match their deepest ethics, or to really support people in being able to make the choices in the name of their highest ethics that might challenge some limitations of ego or take them through some precarious twists and turns. But I think as long as we are all supporting each other, and I think it's such a radical shift, and I love how you said this, to shift from being a rescuer to really being the best supporter of someone else's experience. I think we're at a perfect time in history where this is the crucial message at hand.
Yeah, and it all starts with self, right? And
Yeah.
that's the greatest thing about it, is that this is an internal shift.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, so do you feel, because you mentioned intuitive, and then
Yeah.
in the book you mentioned a lot about us being empathic. Do you feel that we are all empathic, and what's your level of your abilities? Because I know that you're maybe well developed in that area.
Sure. Well, okay, so I know that every person is empathic, and everyone is on a different spectrum of awareness of their empathy, and they're also on a different spectrum of acceptance of their empathic abilities. So we would say that there's two basic spectrums. There's the spectrum of empathy, and there's the spectrum of uh, self absorption, let's say. And of course, the extreme of self absorption is narcissism, and that term gets thrown around a little too loosely because narcissism is self-absorption, but with a constant need to lash out and to fight and attack. And so it's a little different, but I think that the self-absorbed spectrum that leads to narcissism is really just the absolute refusal and denial to accept the empathy within ourselves, especially because the human ego feels so stripped of power when there's some sense of equality. But I know every human being to be an empath, all of us at different levels, again, of awareness and acceptance. For me personally, my empathic abilities are very highly developed. And I can share with you one of my favorite aspects of my highly developed intuition. It's not just that I can tune into people, which I can, and I can feel what's happening in their body. I can feel how their mind is processing what I'm teaching. I can hear deflections. I can hear judgments. But what's so amazing is that that is not necessarily occurring unless I am working with someone in a professional setting. So the greatest, I think, level of my mastery and my intuitive abilities is that I'm only using them when I'm in a consensual, intuitive healing arena. So I can be with people that are in pain. I can be with people that are in despair. And I actually don't even have to use my intuition, because my ability to hold space and support someone as a friend, as a beloved, can actually bring about such a radical level of healing. And so it's amazing when you can be so intuitive that you actually don't even need to use it.
Yeah, that's the paradox that you get to, right? And
Yeah.
that's like when you get to the top of the mountain of whatever skill that you're on, everything is the reverse of what it was when you were kind of just the beginner.
Yes.
Hey, so speaking of your abilities, and I see that there's a lot of people in the chat who are familiar with you and they're showing love. Thank you. But yeah, you have a YouTube channel. Your Instagram is pretty popping. There's
Yeah.
valuable videos on
Thank you.
there. You're writing books. Even just the titles of your books are amazing.
You want, by the way, you want to hear something really funny about the title of my books? This is actually silly and a lesser known truth, but I come up with a book, I submit it to a publisher. Right now, I returned to Sounds True, and it was such a great experience putting All for Love together. But the thing about my books is I've written 4 books. Every word I've written, it's my doing, right? If I work with an editor, we work together, and it's always in my words to keep the energetic transmission. But for some reason, every time I submit a book, somewhere along the process, someone in the process of the publishing company always comes up with a different title that is somehow better than what I created. So I have had the now 4th time having the most incredible tradition of I've written every single thing except the title. So it's a funny tradition that seems to happen.
So when you're writing the books,
Yeah.
is that just flowing through you?
Yeah.
Are you researching? Where's it coming from?
So when it's time for me to write a book, because I have a lot of titles and a lot of ideas that come to me that I write down, and I have files of just ideas because I forget so much. Like I forgot half of the retreats I've led because it's so in the moment. So I'll have a title, and then when it's time for me to write a book, I will start thinking about that title and feeling excited. Part of my process is just I kind of think about what is the subject I'm most excited to talk about if I'm interviewed for the next 2 years. What am I just excited to talk about? And when it's time for me to write a book, what I do, I have a very specific process because I'm a channel, but I'm an embodied channel. And this is what happened with All for Love. This is exactly what happened. I sat down on a Saturday because I felt it was going to come through. And I sat in front of a Word document, and I literally channeled the entire outline from start to finish in 10 minutes. I just literally wrote myself and told myself what every chapter and subchapter was called and what it was about. And then the next day I start following the outline and I channel each section. It can change in the middle and surprises could happen, but I'm following a certain form. So I've trained myself how to channel an outline and then use the outline to channel the book so that it's both inspired transmissions of wisdom as well as it is a cogent literary work of art. And so it's an interesting process I have, but I'm a channel. Literally the book, I heard every word like someone was telling me, and I was capturing lightning in a bottle. And I've said on many occasions, and I will always say that for my books, I am humbled and grateful to be the space through which they are expressed through. I am the space through which books are written, and I'm humbled to have that co-creative opportunity with Source.
Yeah, it's so amazing. So are all of your books channeled this way?
Yes. Yes. It's just the difference is that this was the first book where I was able to kind of channel my human humor and some of my personal experiences into the book, because I went through a 3-year process where a lot of my life that kind of disappeared during certain vivid awakenings. And I've been in samadhi for 15 years, and I haven't had a lot of memories of my personal life. It all kind of vanished. And then the ego that vanished went through an integration process, and then the integrated ego, which we call the soul, then comes back into the body. And so I went through a process of integrating the reborn ego or soul back into my body. And I started to remember a lot of my life that I had forgotten, which is why the book has so many personal stories, because I wanted to show people the personal journey that I took to become who I am. And I wanted to also show how all the teachings were the relevancy that threaded my whole life together to become who I am. And it also helps people connect in a very personal way to some very deep material that will help them transform all of their relationships as well.
The stories were spot on. Like, entertaining, exactly
Thank
the
you.
to do with the subject,
Yeah.
and relevant. Like for today, you even talk about like the debates that happen online, and really like how to respond from an act of holding space or listening to people that are just like outright hating you
That's right.
online. And I know that your YouTube channel is popping off.
Yeah.
Sure that not every comment is, agreeing with you.
Right.
So yeah, what's the process? Like, if sometimes I don't look at my comments because because I don't want to get in that mode, but like,
Mm-hmm.
so what's your process when you're like, when you see a comment that's like derogatory, hateful, or whatever, like, do you take a breath? Do you wait? Like, what's the process that you go through?
Well, when I read someone's comment, it typically doesn't elicit any emotion out of me
Right.
because what someone's sharing is their experience of their perception of me. Like, this is what I think of my version of you. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I honor that because it's their version of me, but it doesn't necessarily match the version I'm living in, right? But what I do, and this is what I've done for the last 10 years on social media, and I talk about it a lot, is and Facebook is easier because you can, or on Instagram you can heart comments, right? And so what I do as a practice is every time there's a post, I will go on Facebook and Instagram, and I can't do it every day because I'm incredibly busy, but as often as I can, I go on and I send a heart to every comment, whether positive or not. And me sending a heart is my way of saying I've just sent you healing energy to either amplify your happiness or to bring greater balance into your life. And so if I ever go on YouTube and I see comments and they're not so nice, they get just as much healing energy sent to them as someone who was nice to me. And so for me, a positive or a not so nice comment is just another person in line to receive healing energy for the wholeness they deserve to receive. And so for me, I don't have a distinction between someone who's not nice or nice. I look at someone who's not nice as an emotional or an energetic crisis and someone begging for help. And my joy is helping people, so it's always a pleasure to help.
This is amazing, right? Like these are life-changing little like practices that are easy to implement.
Yeah.
And because for me, like sometimes I go do the heart thing, but I just really like that the intention that you have is like a different, it's like deeper, and it's simple. It's something that I could definitely utilize.
Well, I love hearing that. And for me, it's like if someone's going to be negative and they're going to be responding to the content, and it's not even usually the content of what I say, it's the content of how they've interpreted what I've said. And sometimes people will misinterpret something just to have the right to have an opinion, or sometimes people will perceive me as like some authority figure, and so they'll tear me down as a way of trying to feel less inferior about themselves. And there's so much psychological warfare that goes into disagreeing with someone. And for me, if we take the content out of it, all I see or hear is just blah, blah, blah. And that's just someone making a lot of noise because they want my attention. And if they want my attention, they must desire what's valuable within me. And what's valuable within me is the healing energy I embody and radiate. So I send it to them. I give them what they want. And their words are just a play of beliefs. And it's not to be minimized, but it certainly doesn't distort my ability to serve people. So whether someone liked me or disliked me or hated my guts, I would be willing to give my life for any individual, and I'd do anything I could to spare and save the life of any person, no matter who they were.
Mm. So those are strangers. What about like relationships, right? So one of the things that comes up for me that you might have expanded perspective on
Sure.
is like if you're in a relationship with somebody
Yeah.
and you see that they're complaining about everything, for me, like that actually impacts me.
Yeah.
Even if it's not about me, I like why do you think that I would feel internal turmoil from somebody else not being cohesive with their environment. Like for me, it doesn't even make sense. Like I'm searching for answers on this. Like, why do I feel offended that somebody else is offended?
Oh, I can tell you exactly why, because you are empathing their experience, because what happens is there's a conscious way of holding space and an unconscious way of holding space. Most empaths, what we do is we unconsciously hold space, which means someone's complaining. And so that discord on a very subconscious level makes us feel like there's a threat in perception. So what we do is we start subconsciously matching the speed of their breath to be more like them, as a subconscious ploy of being better liked by them, because we have a belief that says if I'm better liked by someone, I'll be less of a threat or a target. And so conscious space holding is, if someone is complaining, here's what I want you to listen to. I want you to listen to the pattern of their breath. There's complaints, but usually what you'll hear is ta-ta-ta, 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 ta-ta-ta. And all life is asking you to do is breathe the opposite. They want to be in content, you can be in presence, and both sides get represented. They want to be in the doing, so you go into the being. And as they breathe, da-da-da, 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 you breathe. And the fact that we can be with our breath and listen at the same time is why listening is the most powerful place to be. And for most people, the complaints they're sharing is this is what they're trying to unload that is distorting their consciousness from seeing clearly. And what most people need in order to open up is to be seen and heard, no matter what they say. And so when people are seen and heard, they have permission to be more present with their breath. Then they slow, then they ground back in their body. So if we can be what we are helping to cultivate in other people, they speed up, we slow down. People speak fast, we listen slowly. When it's our turn to respond, we respond mindfully, gently, and slowly to create a frequency of equanimity. And so it's just a tendency that when we are empathing other people's experiences, we want them to feel better so we can feel better. But if we can learn to breathe slower than the speed of people's complaints or judgments or pain or turmoil, we will be in our optimal experience, or holding space for the healing that brings about their optimal experience.
Thank you for that, because yeah, I find myself getting amped up when somebody else is amped up, and I'm observing it, and I'm like, what does this mean? Like I'm still in like a kind of like, I'm confused about the whole thing. What when somebody's angry about something, and maybe even angry about you, like I heard you say the thing about the comments, but like if somebody you know is angry about you, what is like, how do we stay like stable in that situation?
I'll tell you. I mean, I'll share with you how I communicate, because I didn't learn how to communicate from anything other than my experiences in the universe. And then I started to see I need to teach what I think would help a lot of people. I learned it by trial and error of going to family functions and, you know, trying to be a conscious being and the wheels falling off the wagon and going, well, that didn't work. So I just kind of just, you know, this has been my study my whole life of how to be so sensitive and you know, work our way through a world of division and turmoil. But I actually I had an experience once of someone having a problem with me, which is surprising, because not only in my professional life, but in my personal life, it would be no surprise that I'm the person that people come to, right? And so my life, whether I'm on stage or not, is I'm literally living a life of service. And even when I'm not helping people, you know, each day I'm on CNN just looking at headlines and blessing everything with light and sovereignty for all beings. But I had someone come to me once, this is so funny, and they had a problem with a choice that I made. And they said, I have a big problem with this, which, by the way, it's very unusual for someone to have a problem with me who knows me, right? Someone doesn't know me, it could be a projection. And I looked at them and I said, thank you for letting me know. And they stopped. And they said, you're welcome. And then I just looked at them, and they said, well, and I said, well, what? And they said, what are you going to do? And I said, about what? And they said, the thing I have a problem with. I said, oh, I thanked you for bringing that to my attention and letting me know what is most meaningful to you. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah.
And here's the fun part. And this is where it gets really juicy. And then they said, but what are you going to do about it? And then I asked them one of the most powerful questions any human being can ask another human being. And I said, what are you hoping to gain from this conversation with me? What are you hoping to gain from this conversation with me? And they go, I don't know. I said, well, when you find out what you hope to gain from this conversation, let me know. And if what you hope to gain is what I'm equally excited to share, then we can talk about it. But please figure out what you hope to gain before we can proceed further. And that was the end of the conversation. Because I'm in a place of power. We're all in a place of power. And as empaths, we're trying to be there for people, or we're trying to be too liked by people, that we give away our power and we don't know how to hold value for our time and space. And so it's an amazing gift when you can be so generous with your time, energy, and space, while also valuing it and making sure that you are always in conversations or interactions of consensual nature. So if someone has a problem with me, thank you for sharing what is meaningful to you. Thank you for sharing your secrets with me. As a friend, I always want to know how you feel. What am I going to do about it? What do you hope to gain from asking that question? Most people don't know because it's a manipulative pattern. And so I hold space for being the advocate that keeps my innocence safe, and equally holding space for the healing of all innocent beings. But I am not a pushover. I'm not here to be manipulated. And we can be much smarter in our communication, so to make sure that we're not being, manipulated by someone else's unconscious patterning in the name of trying to establish deeper connection.
So amazing, so simple.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more dynamic to integrate
Yeah.
into life, right?
Yeah.
Which is the beautiful thing about life, is we get to practice this stuff. There's so many of these statements or questions. There's one sentence things all over this book, All for Love. If you guys are just joining, I'm talking to Matt Kahn. He does many things. He's a speaker. He's a writer. Video. He makes videos. He helps people. He's a coach. What else? Like, am I missing anything in there?
Whew. I mean, I'm here to help humanity, but I'm blessed to say I'm a best-selling author. I speak on stage. I have been leading retreats for 15 years now, and as things continue to evolve for me, and I'm getting back to doing in-person events, and I also, in the next stage of my life and my career, have seen this vision for myself, and now I'm starting to manifest the groundwork. And I can't say too much about it, but I'm in the process of the early stages of bringing my heart-centered transformation and the way I help people heal to television.
Nice.
So I believe that I'm going to take what I do to television. I'm going to keep doing what I do. And on the side, when I'm not, doing this healing work, one of my greatest artistic passions is cooking. And something that I always love teaching is that when we play a large role in the consciousness of other people, it's important that we also have some form of artistic hobby that lets us be artists and not just luminaries. And one of the things I can share with you, because I know earlier you were sharing about like jumping in and here's what I get to help other people, is what I found that what helped me heal that in myself. Because in the beginning of my career, I was so spiritually on fire, which I still am. But if you went to lunch with me, Matt Kahn transmits. Everywhere I go, I'm transmitting. And it's like, for me, it really like if I was a medium, I don't need to like tell you what your dead grandpa said, in every situation. So for me, the integration of my mastery is that when there's a consciousness that we bring through, and then there's an inner artist. And I find that when spiritual beings are too spiritual and not as artistic, it tends to create an imbalance. And so for me, when I'm not working, it's so important that I have a life filled with artistic, creative self-expression to balance everything. And I find that has been one of the greatest tools for me. And it certainly is one of the benefits that we all gain by bringing the divine feminine in equal balance to the inner masculine.
Yeah, let the flow go. Do you have any retreats coming up, just to plug anything?
Yeah, I think I'm speaking upcoming at the Mile High Church near Denver, Colorado. I'll be at Omega Institute in a month or so. I don't know the exact dates, but if you go to mattkahn.org and click on the events section, you can find out about all the events I'm doing. I have some in-person events, and some of those in-person events also have live stream options for people that are feeling more comfortable with that virtual opportunity. I'm just about to start Angel Academy 14, which is one of, my Angel Academy series online is just one of my most powerful online adventures that I offer. And, if you go to mattkahn.org, and particularly mattkahn.org/love, you can order All for Love. And by filling out the form on that page, we will send you instant access to the documentary that we made called Healed by Love, which is so extraordinary. So it's just a wonderful time to be alive. It's a very intense time to be alive. But for me, when life gets crazy, it's an opportunity to serve humanity at an even higher level. And so may this be a time for all of us to step forward, to shine our light, let our voices be heard, and live in sovereignty and respect for the freedoms and rights of every individual.
Matt, I could keep on talking to you forever, but I think this is Instagram, and short form actually does better than long form.
Sure.
And you've said a whole bunch of valuable stuff in the last 30 minutes. And thank you everybody in the comments for participating. But I think it seems like the natural time to close, even though I'd like to continue this on. But if you guys want to continue on with him, hit the follow button. He's got tons of amazing content, and you will not be disappointed with his books, guys. They're amazing, precise, actionable,
Yes.
planable. And do you have any closing statements for? There's like 130 people here watching right now, listening to you right now.
One of the things I'd like to say that just intuitively I'm just reminded of, and I want to remind everyone, is that it's such an old folklore to believe that when we're sad, we're not being loving, or when we're angry, we're not being loving. And what I want to say is that no emotion is separate from love, and that what I teach, especially in the book All for Love, is the most functional and practical way to recognize that every emotion is not in the way of love, but every emotion is waiting in line to be loved. And so in this new paradigm, it's not love versus fear. It's loving the one who's afraid. It's not turning sadness into love. It's loving the one who's sad. And it's not choosing to be in a vibration of love so to escape the vibration of sadness. It's letting sadness return to its original form of love by giving it the unwavering support that it cries out for. And so I represent love and how we can use it to solve the world's problems and to experience every milestone of spiritual expansion and development only in the most loving way.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
Super amazing. Matt, pleasure to be on here with you.
Likewise.
Hopefully we can do this again.
Let's do it.
I wish you luck on everything. And everybody, please go check out his stuff. And the book, All for Love, is explaining what he just said.
Can I ask you one question before we adjourn? Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
For the inner artist in you, what is your preferred artistic medium? Mine's cooking. What's yours?
So for me, it's physical expression. I like to develop skill sets within my physical body.
Yeah.
And it gets challenging as I get older because my body, because this has been my preferred method my entire life, and when I was younger, it was competitive. And then eventually it was non-competitive. It was more artistic because competition takes away the creative nature of things.
Sure.
And so it was just unicycling and balancing on things and just seeing what I can do with this physical body. And the funny thing is, it keeps what I'm able to do with my physical body gets like seemingly less and less, right? Like it's painful, it's more stiff, it's less strong, but my craving to do more is like, it goes higher as my body is sort of like deteriorating, right? It's going back to the earth. And so it's just the challenge, like I get a challenge to match. My desire to express is matched with the same level of challenge with this let's call it like a canvas, right? It's like a canvas that I experience through.
That's amazing. Well, and even like the hardship of the physical body deteriorating and the ambition to keep it going, but then the reality of the body, that might be something really interesting to write about and to let the inner artist like explore that almost existential tragedy of like, here's how I express myself and here's how things are changing. It just seems like a great opportunity for a deep artist to use that as a form of expression. I think it's a crucial turning point, and I love that share.
Yeah, because you end up uh, like I end up finding importance in things that I never really paid attention to before, like breathing, right? Like I will be able to breathe till my last breath,
Right.
and so that's not going away. So then I find a lot of capacity within the breath that when what was important was, deadlifting 500 pounds and running miles as fast as
Right.
possible. And like it's like I'm able to expand the capacity in simpler and simpler versions of
Yeah.
the art form, which is, yeah, it's constantly shifting paradigms. And it's like stepping out of matrices into new levels of awareness.
I love that. My background, I used to be a personal trainer. A lot of people who know my work can't believe it. I used to be a personal trainer and a bodybuilder. And I was almost going to compete in bodybuilding. And recently I've started to, really get into good shape after many years of inactivity. And I actually got back into bodybuilding just as a fun challenge. I'm 45 years old. And I thought, what if I worked out and to see, because my body is still the way it was before. It's been underneath a little bit of emotional protection that I've healed. And so I've lost about 25 pounds and I'm back to, working out, but I can't work out how the 25-year-old body or the 23-year-old bodybuilder used to work out. So I'm equally finding that I'm dedicating myself to health and wellness. And I love lifting weights. I used to, I have an ability somehow to lift very heavy weights in a very, with very good form. But I've had to realize like how to adapt this passion to a 45-year-old body. And so I've had the same experience in my own way. And I just say these words supportively of letting you know I totally understand the journey and, we're not alone.
Exactly. Okay. I think this is the end. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Matt. Talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon.
Love y'all.
Bye.